My name is Lily, and for the longest time I felt like a shadow. Not the kind that stretches long and cool on a summer afternoon, but the kind that clings to corners, unnoticed, unwanted. I grew up in a place they called a home, but it never felt like one. It was a building full of other kids who, like me, were waiting for someone to pick them to say, "You, I want you." For many of the kids, that day came. A nice couple would come, smile, and a child would pack their small bag, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. I'd watch them go, a knot tightening, in my stomach. My turn never seemed to come. The ladies who ran the home were kind enough, I suppose. They gave us food, clothes, and a bed. But there was always this invisible wall around me. I was a quiet child, and my skin was the color of rich earth after a spring rain. In that place, at that time, it seemed like that color made me different in a way people didn't want. I remember one time, a couple came. The lady had kind eyes. She smiled at me, even knelt down to talk to me. I dared to hope. My heart did a little fluttery dance. Then her husband pulled her aside and I heard him whisper, "But she's, it might be harder." The lady's smile faded a little when she looked back at me. They chose a girl with sunny yellow hair instead. That happened more times than I can count. Sometimes the whispers were louder. "Are you sure you want one like that?" Or, "We were thinking of someone lighter." Each word was like a small stone thrown at my heart. I learned to build a wall around it, to not let the hope flutter so high because the fall was always so painful. I got older, 10, then 12, then 14. The chances got slimmer with each passing year. The ladies at the home started looking at me with a kind of pity that stung more than outright meanness. They tried, I know they did. They'd tell prospective parents about my good grades, how I was helpful, how I loved to read. But then the parents would see me, and their eyes would skim past, looking for someone else. I started to believe it, that I was unwanted, that my skin, the very thing that was part of me, was a barrier. I'd look in the mirror sometimes, at my dark eyes and the curly black hair I tried so hard to tame, and I'd wonder what was so wrong with me. I wasn't a bad kid. I just wanted a place to belong. A real home. Someone to call family. When I was nearly 16, Mrs. Peterson, my caseworker, called me into her office. She had that look on her face, the one that meant she had news, but she wasn't sure if it was good or bad. "Lily," she said, folding her hands on her desk, "there's a possibility, a placement." I kept my face blank. I'd learned not to show anything. "Okay, it's a bit different," she said, hesitating. "It's a farmer, a single man. He lives quite a ways out in the country." A farmer? I pictured a grumpy old man with a pitchfork. The idea didn't fill me with excitement. "He's looking for some help around the farm," Mrs. Peterson continued. "And, well, he's open to fostering an older child. He knows your background, Lily." She paused, and then said the words that always hung in the air. "He knows you're black." I just nodded. What was there to say? "His name is Mr. Abernathy. Jedediah Abernathy," she said. "He seems like a decent man. Quiet. Keeps to himself mostly." A few days later, Mrs. Peterson drove me out there. The city melted away, replaced by fields, then more fields, and then woods. It felt like we were driving to the end of the world. I'd never been so far from buildings and concrete. The air even smelled different, cleaner, with a tang of earth and something else. Animals, maybe? We turned down a long, bumpy dirt road. My stomach was doing flips. This was it. Another chance to be looked over, to be found wanting. The farmhouse was old, a bit weathered, but it looked sturdy. It was painted white, but the paint was peeling in places. There was a big porch, and a dog with floppy ears lying on it, who lifted his head and thumped his tail once when our car pulled up. A man came out onto the porch. He wasn't what I expected. He wasn't terribly old, maybe in his late 40s or early 50s. He was tall and lean, with work-roughened hands and kind, tired eyes. His hair was a bit gray at the temples, and he wore a faded blue work shirt and jeans. He didn't smile, not exactly, but he didn't frown either. He just looked at me, a long, steady look. "This is Lily," Mrs. Peterson said, a little too brightly. "Mr. Abernathy," I mumbled, looking at my shoes. "Jed," he said, his voice deep and a little raspy, like he wasn't used to talking much. "Come on in." The house was simple inside, clean, but lived in. There was a smell of coffee and something like old wood. It wasn't fancy, but it felt calm. Mrs. Peterson did most of the talking. Mr. Abernathy, Jed, mostly listened, nodding. Now and then. He asked me a few questions. "You ever been on a farm, Lily?" "No, sir," I said. "Call me Jed," he said. "No need for sir out here." He asked if I was scared of animals. I shook my head. I didn't know if I was or not, but I didn't want to seem like a baby. After a while, Mrs. Peterson said she had to leave. She gave me a quick, nervous hug. "Be good, Lily. Call me if you need anything." And then she was gone, and I was alone, with this quiet farmer, in the middle of nowhere. The silence felt huge. I stood there, clutching my small bag, not knowing what to do or say. Jed cleared his throat. "Rooms upstairs, second door on the left, supper's at 6. And then he went back outside. My room was small, with a sloping ceiling and a single window that looked out over a field. There was a narrow bed with a handmade quilt, a small dresser, and a wooden chair. It was bare, but it was clean. And it was mine. For now. I sat on the bed. The silence was broken only by the chirping of crickets outside and the distant moo of a cow. I felt a familiar wave of loneliness wash over me. Was this just another place I wouldn't fit? Another place I'd leave with my bag a little heavier with disappointment? That first evening, supper was quiet. Jed cooked stew and cornbread. It was good, simple food. He didn't talk much, and I didn't either. I mostly watched him. He ate slowly, methodically. He wasn't unfriendly, just contained. After supper, he showed me where the bathroom was, how the shower worked. "Lights out around 9 for me," he said. "Up at 5. 5 in the morning?" I usually slept until 7 at the home. The next day my education began. Jed woke me before the sun was even thinking about showing up. It was still dark and a little chilly. "Cows need milking," he said, handing me a pair of rubber boots that were too big. I'd never been close to a cow before. They were huge. And smelly. Jed showed me how to wash the udders, how to attach the milking machines. My hands fumbled. I was clumsy. I spilled some milk. I felt stupid. Jed didn't scold me. He just patiently showed me again. "You'll get the hang of it," he said. There were chickens to feed, eggs to collect. The chickens pecked at my boots and I jumped. Jed almost smiled then. Almost. There was mucking out stalls. That was the worst. The smell was overpowering. But Jed worked alongside me, not asking me to do anything he wouldn't do. My body ached, in places I didn't know could ache. My hands got blisters. I was tired all the time. More than once I thought about calling Mrs. Peterson and telling her I couldn't do it. This wasn't me. I was a city girl, a book girl, not a farm girl. But something kept me there. Maybe it was Jed's quiet patience. He never raised his voice. He never made me feel stupid, even when I made mistakes, which was often. He'd just correct me gently. "Hold it like this, Lily. Not so fast with that girl." And there were moments, small moments, that started to feel okay, like collecting warm eggs from the hen house, careful not to break them, or watching the sunrise paint the sky with colors I'd never seen in the city while sipping hot coffee Jed had made, or the way the old dog Gus would follow me around, nudging my hand for a pat. He didn't care what color I was. He just wanted a friend. Jed started giving me more responsibilities. He taught me how to drive the old farm truck in the fields. He showed me how to mend fences. He even started teaching me about the crops, when to plant, how to spot disease. He talked more, too. Not a lot, but more. He'd tell me stories about his pa who'd owned the farm before him, about his ma who made the quilt on my bed. He'd point out different birds, tell me their names. One afternoon, we were fixing a fence at the far end of the pasture. It was hot, and I was tired. "Why did you pick me, Jed?" I asked, the question suddenly tumbling out before I could stop. He stopped hammering and looked out over the fields. He was quiet for a long time. I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he said, "Needed help." He paused. "And Mrs. Peterson said you needed a place. Seemed like it might work out." It wasn't. A very emotional answer. But then he looked at me, really looked at me, with those steady, kind eyes. "Everyone deserves a place, Lily, don't they?" Tears pricked my eyes. I blinked them back. "Yeah," I whispered. "They do." Life on the farm wasn't easy. There was always work to do, from sunup to sundown, but I started to feel useful, stronger. My hands got calloused, but they also got capable. I learned the rhythm of the seasons, the language of the animals. Jed wasn't a talkative man, but his actions spoke volumes. He'd leave a piece of pie for me if he baked. He bought me a new pair of properly fitting boots. When I had a bad cold, he made me soup and told me to stay in bed, doing my chores himself. He never once mentioned my skin color, not after that first day when Mrs. Peterson brought it up. To him, I was just Lily, the girl who helped on his farm, the girl who was slowly, surprisingly, starting to feel like she belonged there. Of course, it wasn't all sunshine. We had to go into town sometimes for supplies. The town was small, the kind where everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew Jed Abernathy. They also knew he was alone. The first time I went with him, I felt the stares. I saw the way people looked at me, then at Jed, then back at me, their eyebrows raised. I heard a woman in the grocery store whisper to her friend, "Isn't that Jed? Abernathy? Who's that with him?" The emphasis on that made my stomach clench. I wanted to disappear, to run back to the farm, where it was just me and Jed and the animals and the quiet fields. Jed must have noticed. On the way back in the truck, he was even quieter than usual. Then he said, "People can be small-minded, Lily. Don't you pay them no mind. They don't know you. They don't know anything." It was the most he'd ever said about it, and it meant the world to me. He was on my side. He saw me. Not just the color of my skin, but me. One day, a few months after I arrived, I found an old guitar in the attic. It was dusty, with a broken string. "That was my wife's," Jed said, when I brought it downstairs. His voice was softer than usual. "You were married?" I asked, surprised. He never spoke of a wife. "A long time ago," he said, looking at the guitar. Her name was Martha. She loved music. He ran a finger over the dusty wood. She passed. Cancer. Years back now. It was a small glimpse into his own quiet sorrow, his own past. It made me feel closer to him. He helped me fix the string. I didn't know how to play, but I'd always wanted to learn. I found an old beginner's book in town, and I'd practice in my room in the evenings. The sounds I made were awful at first, but Jed never complained. Sometimes I'd see him listening from the doorway, a faint smile on his face. Slowly, the farm started to feel like home, not just a place I was staying, but a place where I belonged. I knew every inch of it. I knew the moods of the cows, the favorite napping spot of Gus the dog, the way the wind rustled through the cornfields just before a rain. I still missed things sometimes. Friends my own age, movies, pizza delivery. But the quiet peace of the farm, the steady rhythm of the work, the unassuming kindness of Jed, these things filled a hole in me that had been empty for so long. One evening, we were sitting on the porch after supper, watching the fireflies blink in the twilight. It was a warm summer night. "You know, Lily," Jed said, out of the blue, "this farm, it's a lot for one old man. Been thinking. When I'm gone, well, I ain't got no kin to speak of." He looked at me. "I'd like for you to have it, if you want it." I stared at him, speechless. The farm? His farm? For me? "You've worked hard here," he continued, as if he was talking about the weather. "You've earned a stake in it. You're good with the animals. You got a feel for the land." Tears welled up in my eyes, and this time, I didn't try to stop them. They streamed down my face. "Jed," I choked out. I don't know what to say," he just grunted. "Nothing to say. Just think on it." But I didn't need to think on it. This man, this quiet farmer who had taken a chance on a girl no one else wanted, was offering me a future, a home, a legacy. It wasn't just about the land or the animals or the house. It was about him. He saw me. He valued me. He wanted me. Not in spite of who I was, but just as I was. That night, for the first time in my life, I felt truly, deeply, unconditionally wanted. The next day, Mrs. Peterson called. It was just a routine check-in. "So, Lily, how are things going out there?" she asked. I looked out my window, at the green fields stretching towards the horizon, at Gus chasing a butterfly, at the sturdy old barn. I thought of Jed, out in the fields already, his familiar figure a part of the landscape. "Things are good, Mrs. Peterson," I said, and my voice was steady and sure. "Really good." "You sound different, Lily," she said. "Happier." "I am happy," I said. And I realized, with a little jolt of surprise, that it was true. I, Lily, the girl no one wanted, was happy. Jed wasn't a man for big emotional displays. But his offer, his quiet words on the porch that evening, had changed something fundamental inside me. It was like a missing piece of my soul had clicked into place. The next few years weren't always easy. Farming is hard work, unpredictable. There were droughts, and sick animals, and machinery that broke down at the worst possible times. There were still folks in town who gave me sideways glances, though some, seeing me with Jed month after month, year after year, started to nod, even offer a hesitant smile. I learned to ignore the ones who didn't. Their opinions didn't matter. What mattered was the farm, the work, and Jed. Jed taught me everything he knew. How to read the weather in the clouds, how to bargain for a fair price at the market, how to birth a calf in the dead of night. He even taught me how to make his mother's apple pie, the one he'd sometimes leave a piece of for me. My guitar playing got better. Sometimes on summer evenings, I'd sit on the porch and play old folk songs. Jed would sit in his rocker, eyes closed, tapping his foot. Gus would lie at my feet, sighing contentedly. Those were good times. I finished high school through correspondence courses. Jed was proud. He even drove me into the city for a small graduation ceremony for kids like me. He wore his good church suit, looking a bit uncomfortable but determined. When they called my name, he clapped louder than anyone. One spring when I was almost 20, Jed got sick. It started as a cough, but it didn't go away. He got weaker, tired more easily. The doctor in town looked grave. "It's his lungs, Lily," he said. "Years of dust, I reckon. Not much we can do but keep him comfortable." I took care of him. I ran the farm mostly by myself, with some help from a neighbor Jed had always been good to. I cooked for him, read to him, helped him walk when he was able. It was hard, seeing him so frail, this man who had always been so strong. He never complained, but sometimes I'd find him looking out the window at the fields, a sadness in his eyes. "You'll do fine, Lily," he said one day, his voice a hoarse whisper. "You're a good farmer, better than I was some days." "Don't talk like that, Jed," I said, my throat tight. He just smiled, a weak but genuine smile. "Truth's truth, girl." He passed away on a warm evening in early summer, just as the fireflies were starting their dance. I was holding his hand. He just slipped away, peaceful. The silence in the house after he was gone was a heavy, aching thing. Gus whined, nudging my hand, looking for Jed. The funeral was small. Mrs. Peterson came. A few neighbors. Some folks. From town, more than I expected. They spoke kindly of Jed. A good man, they said. A fair man. After everyone left, I sat on the porch, alone. The farm felt too big, too empty. For a moment, the old fear, the old loneliness, tried to creep back in. What would I do now? All by myself? Then I remembered Jed's words. "Everyone deserves a place, Lily. He had given me mine, and he had believed in me." A lawyer from town contacted me a few days later. Jed had left everything to me, the farm, the house, the old truck, even his meager savings. His will was simple, handwritten. To Lily, who became the daughter I never had. She knows this land. It's hers now. Daughter. He'd called me his daughter. Tears streamed down my face as I read those words. This gruff, quiet farmer, who had seen something in a lonely, unwanted girl, had given me the one thing I'd always craved. A family, a real one. It wasn't about blood. It was about love and acceptance and shared work under a wide-open sky. It's been many years since Jed passed. I still live on the farm. It's my farm now. My home. It's still hard work. There are good years and bad years. But every morning, when I go out to milk the cows, when I see the sunrise paint the sky, when I feel the good earth under my boots, I think of Jed. I never forgot where I came from, the girl who felt like a shadow. But that shadow doesn't cling to me anymore. Jed's kindness, his belief in me, was like sunlight. It chased the shadows away. Sometimes, new families move into the area. Sometimes, they have children who look at me with curiosity. I make sure to smile, to be friendly. I remember what it felt like to be on the outside. Gus lived to a ripe old age, always my faithful companion. Now I have a new dog, a young, energetic pup named Jed, in his honor. I still play Martha's guitar on the porch, sometimes. I think Jed would like that. I'm not lonely anymore. The farm is full of life, and I am part of it. I belong here. People said no one wanted me because I was black. They were wrong. One man, a simple farmer with a quiet heart, wanted me. And inside wanting me, he didn't just change my life. He gave me one. He showed me that the color of my skin didn't define my worth. My heart did. My hands did. And the love I found and gave on this small piece of land under the vast, open sky. My name is Lily. And this is my home. And I am wanted. I am loved. And that, I've learned, is everything.